Crystal O'Connor. What an absolute pleasure to talk to Crystal. She's a marketing person, essentially, but so much more than that. She coaches, she teaches, she speaks about health, wealth, and happiness. So often we hear people trying to, talk to people about how to make more money and to, get at a better wealth space. But Crystal brings it all together and talks about happiness and health and proper diet and minerals, and she's got great insight on that. And what a backstory about where she grew up, and she had to live in a car for a while. She has some very low lows, but she learned from it, and she used to not like to talk about it, and now she does. And a great thing happened, and how she became a mother is a fascinating story, and how she's completely turned everything around from being cheated out of commission structures at jobs, and trying to sell commercial real estate in the worst economy back in 2008, and how she's turned it all around. And she's an author, she's a podcaster, she's a speaker, she's incredibly motivational and contagious. Her passion is contagious. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Very excited to talk to you, Crystal O'Connor, or Crystal O, I hear sometimes. What do we need to do to be healthy, wealthy, and happy?
They are so connected, but it has to do with your habits. It starts with your habits and having to really focus on rewiring your brain. And I didn't know that until I was well into I think it was in my 30s. And I thought, wait a minute, what is this rewire your brain talk? I have never done or heard anything like this or done anything like it. And I realized that it can change your life quickly and that they're all very connected. So your money mindset and your self-worth is all linked to your habits. And what do they say? Cleanliness is next to godliness. And that whole connection reminded me a lot of the habits that I had a couple of great aunts that were nuns. And speaking of habit, they wore habits. Isn't that funny? It just struck me actually. But they were so disciplined, and it drove me crazy. It just kind of drove me crazy. And there was a lot of repetition going on. And I really did at the time as a kid think, what a waste of time. What a waste of time their discipline is, and their repetition. And one of the things that one of them would do, I noticed she would wash the dishes before she put them in the dishwasher, and I would argue with her about it. Like, why would you do this? Do you know
What,
what a
with
dishwasher?
soap and water?
Yeah, I was like, yeah. So then they were extra clean, and she didn't want anybody to take a shower without squeegeeing the walls after. I mean, she lived like a kind of like a drill sergeant type. But here's the thing: I look back at that and realize that there was a reason for all of that. And if you can live like that and become disciplined in how you treat your environment and organized and who you let into your space and you protect your energy, you will change your life significantly,
Mm.
very, very fast. And it's definitely connected to money. And it is tax day, or no, tomorrow is tax day, Joe.
Yes, you're right. It is.
It is. And so I was just, my daughter was doing her taxes on her phone and she's getting frustrated. And she says,
Mm.
well, this is just stupid. And I said, what's stupid? Adulting? Adulting? Why do they want so much information? And I'm thinking, yeah, see, this is going to teach you to be organized for next year. Okay. You didn't have your things in order and now you're paying the price. So I don't know if I got away from the answer you were looking for there, but there's definitely a connection with organization. Because here's the thing, I know that we forget this while we're adulting, but we have to let the good things in, right? So you have to make room for them. So you got to get the things you don't want out.
Mm.
And that sometimes is physical things, sometimes it's people that are, you know, sucking your energy, but it leaves room for the good habits that you need to instill in yourself, in your life.
Very important. You brought up a point where it's important to hire people or work with people that you like, because if you don't, you'll really not like what you do, and that's really important to like what you do. And uh, the kind of three pillars that I glean from you are health, wealth, and happiness.
Yes, that's why my most recent program is Rich, Fit, and Happy, and
Hmm.
how they are all very much related. But, you know, when I started my business, Moxie Entrepreneur, years ago, and left TV advertising and commercial real estate in '08, commercial real estate, as you can imagine, was being affected.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I need to do, I think I want to do something a little different. But it was at the very same time I had decided to start searching. And I remember one quote by, can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. He's an older gentleman. I think he's still alive, but he had a great quote. And I've heard it said many different ways. And it goes like this: you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I really took that to heart, took it seriously. And as soon as I did and really started thinking about that and realizing that the 5 people that I spend the most time with are the people at work, I
Hmm.
realized I didn't want what they had. I was forcing myself really to just be around them because I had to. But I also noticed that he was right and that they were rubbing off on me whether I liked it or not. And it was something that I hadn't really ever thought about until then. And it was soon after that I invested in a course by Robert Kiyosaki, and that changed everything. It
Yeah. Paid
almost
a
like
lot of money.
it opened up portals in my brain
Hmm.
and saw opportunity everywhere. So as I was selling commercial real estate in the worst real estate market that I know of, uh, I went to network at a Panera one morning, and it was a bloggers group, and I had no idea what a blog was. And so the Des Moines Register took my picture, and underneath it, it said bloggers group. And I'm like, wow, I should probably know what a blog is, considered
Hmm.
the town's going to think I'm a blogger. And it was kind of a joke. And before I knew it, I was putting up a blog and then teaching some of the other realtors, and thought, well, I'm going to use this to find investors, and teaching some of the other realtors to do it. Well, I could tell because there were a lot of I was like one of the only women in this
Yeah.
group of commercial realtors, and they were older and they were just really kind of closed off with with LinkedIn and with social media. They were not open minded. Uh, but the one thing that I noticed that changed everything for me was how much I had been charging, because I would write commercials and help small business owners for years. I did that, helping them do their marketing and advertising. And what they would pay for a 30-second ad that the Nielsen ratings could not really prove that people were
Mm.
seeing was atrocious, like
Yeah.
sad. And I saw them struggle. Some of the small business owners really struggle to pay for that. And when I saw YouTube and Facebook came out with video, and I could put a little opt-in at the time. I spent 4 hours, Joe, trying trying to put an opt-in page when I figured out an opt-in page to collect um, emails and lead pages, and all of that opened up to me because my idea at the time was to find investors. and connect with them in that way. So I spent 4 hours putting a little opt-in box on my Facebook profile page. I had to learn HTML and understand all of that. But I thought to myself, wow, people they're getting thousands of eyeballs for free.
Mm.
So I thought I'm going to start teaching small business owners how to do this and save thousands of dollars for eyeballs. And so that's what I started doing with Moxie Entrepreneur. And then I taught classes, and some of it was done for you with Moxie Media Solutions. So I'd get them on the phone. I literally had, and I might be getting away. Is it okay? Could I just keep sharing my little story here?
Please, Crystal.
So I built a list with that lead page. I had it in a couple of different areas, and I thought, well, I've got to give them something. So what I would do is I'd have an anchor event, and at the time it wasn't Zoom, they didn't have live video yet. So I would just give them a phone number. It was a bridge line, and every Wednesday I would talk about money and what I was learning from flying around the country, which I did with the Robert Kiyosaki group. And I would flip homes. I only did that twice before and got myself into trouble and had to get an attorney, and that scared me. And that is something that I had to do. You have to learn these things. But
Yes.
I was going to keep doing it, but became more interested in all the eyeballs on video and helping small business owners with that. So I did a little bit of real estate, but really most of my attention, was building that list. And I did a telesummit. I That was really the majority of my list, was that telesummit and the anchor event. So I connected with people that way, and the telesummit was using other people's lists, warm leads. And that is one of the things that I teach, to build your list and build it. So in Rich, Fit, and Happy, I teach them how to make more money, how to manage the money wisely, how to stay fit as you age.
Mm.
Because after 40, what I was noticing and experiencing myself was that, especially women, and I can't speak for men, but I do know that our food and what we're putting in our body is affecting our hormones. So
Mm.
the gut and the brain, recent research is shouting at us that the brain and the gut are connected. And if our gut isn't healthy, we're not making the right moves in our business. We're becoming overweight. It's affecting our confidence. So when
Mm.
I started struggling in my 40s with this whole concept, and one of the things that women have to do, and they're not really um, always ready for, is to step into really what is a masculine role, the
Mm.
hunter. And that takes another part of us. And if you're not fit and you're not mentally ready for that, you are pushing yourself and trying to pull from something that's not even there. So, getting the right vitamins, getting the right nutrients, and one of the things that's not talked about enough is minerals. Affects your hormones. If you don't have enough progesterone, which again sometimes it's called the happy hormone, you know, if you feel depressed, how are you going to make things happen and have the confidence to and attract the right clients and attract the right people to work with you in your business and to pair up with? So all of those things, do you see how I'm hoping that I'm illustrating well enough how this is all connected? So if you don't feel well, you're not going to do the things required in your business, because there's a lot that you need to do. It's going to feel like way too much if you don't have internally what it takes to do that. So it all starts with the brain and the gut. So I talk about that and the
Mm.
connection between that and the drive to do. Like, I know that hormones are talked about a lot, and I think we've been lied to for many, many years. I know that we've been lied to by the medical establishments about hormones, and bioidentical hormones became really popular, and right now are really popular. Women are thinking that the answer is to replace depleted hormones without realizing that there are other countries in the world that do not have this problem. Perimenopause and menopause isn't even talked about. It's not talked about because they don't have depleted minerals. They're not putting the wrong things in their body to affect their minerals and their nutrition. And so, therefore, the natural drop in our hormones in our 40s and 50s that's supposed to be natural, and our body just, I mean, we stop making eggs. It's going to happen. We shouldn't have a complete body breakdown because of it. All of the body breakdown and all of the hot flat, all of the things that women are out there shouting and talking about, and it's affecting their mindset and their ability to move forward in their business. It's coming from a place of lack of nutrition. You to go and get hormone replacement and to replace hormones isn't necessarily the answer. And I would love to argue with anyone about that. I shouldn't say argue necessarily, but there's a lot
Discuss.
of experts now pushing hormones. But the truth is, if you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to replace hormones without addressing the root cause of your symptoms, you're wasting your money and time.
Mm,
And without the proper nutrition, and if there is a lack, which most likely there is, especially magnesium, magnesium is a huge problem in this country. So if we don't, it actually, magnesium, for instance, helps about, I think it's between 500 and 700 functions in the body,
wow.
the heart being the main one. So heart disease is like what the number one cause of death, might be actually suicide at this point. Um, Depression, it helps with so many things that should be the first thing that is addressed. Magnesium, vitamin D, those two things, they're not being addressed, but then quickly people are wanting to go get hormones replaced. So you go too long in a state of uh, nutritional deficiencies, and what does that lead to? What do you think, Joe, that leads to?
Unhappiness.
Disease that
Ah.
can't be reversed.
Hmm.
So that's the word I want to get out to. So when I started seeing the connection between that, the connection between feeling good, feeling confident, stepping out, getting on stage requires people to do something they've never done before in a lot of ways. Getting on camera, um, they all require confidence. Yes, yes, you can gain confidence by doing it, but you've got to feel good. You have to physically feel good enough to do it as well. So
It's wonderful how your I guess your main occupation is marketing. Not it's part of it. It's one of the elements, but you also this element of health and happiness is so important. As all too often we see someone just kind of focusing on one. I know many very wealthy, rich people that are just miserable and unhealthy. And the balance of all of those is essential to people. Just want to focus on one thing, and they when I started my business, I was just worried about running the business and I wasn't paying attention to myself. And, this is what happens. But it's nice that you're rounding that out with those three pillars.
yeah, I'm glad that you say that it's nice. I think that it's essential that we address it. And I think that there are so many other programs out there that lack some of this. So I
Hmm.
want kind of like a one-stop shop where it's being addressed, and people see that it's just as important,
Hmm.
because there's so much money being spent on looking a certain way, but you got to feel it from the inside out too, and or you really won't do the things that you need to do, um, that are all linked to confidence. So here's also another reason why I've always been interested in mindset. And I had a brother that committed suicide at age 23. Uh, I had an uncle that committed suicide when he was about 22. And so mental health is important. And when I see the staggering numbers of suicide and depression, and that what I think it's 50 to 60% of women specifically are on an antidepressant, that's not normal. That is not normal for to pop antidepressants. How about popping some magnesium? How about understanding what your body needs so that you don't have to reach for those? And there is a lot of research being done, and it's good, but it's kind of sad that we finally are starting to see the connection between, for instance, um, muscle health and brain, and dementia and muscle. Like, there's definitely a connection, and there is also, you can, at a certain point, you can actually reverse some of the symptoms, but then there's also a point where you can't go back, and that's really sad. So
Mm.
women um, are having to address this and feeling like they have fog brain. um, I don't know if you've heard that, but you can't have fog brain and foggy brain mindset when you are attempting to start your business. And we all know that, or not just start your business, but in your business, we all know that content is king, right?
Right.
It's said a lot. Content requires thinking. Content requires mindset, organization, memory, all of that. And did you know that your muscles, especially in your legs, are connected to that? I was talking to an expert the other day. It's totally fascinating. The studies that are coming out, sharing um, these advanced studies that are proving muscle, gut, brain, all connected. And yet, traditional doctors, are still not addressing it when you meet with them face to face.
Mm.
They're still not addressing doing the right labs to address where you're deficient. They're still not doing it, but yet it's literally linked to all of it, and heart health, all of it. So I'm passionate about it. And
Yes.
uh, yeah,
It's fascinating also to me that Crystal, that you're completely self-made. The two stories was a couple, but if we go back to outside of Chicago, right, in Decatur, Illinois, where you had some hardships there, but there's one particular story, of course, in the movie theater, and then of course, you had to live in your car for a while. There was certain hardships there, and right after you graduate high school, you got out, went to Des Moines. Very
yeah.
impressive.
Um, yeah, it was, I guess you could call that trauma, right? We've all got some trauma. And that, for me, was early enough to wake me up.
Mm,
And you've probably heard, when you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go up, right?
right.
At least I know that will never happen to me again. It happened early enough. It will never happen to me again. But yeah, I left a family situation that, let's just say, it was toxic and involved alcohol. So
Okay.
alcoholism was in my family, one particular member of my family. And leaving is one of the best things you can do in a situation like that,
Yeah.
and distancing yourself. They say that a person doesn't really grow um, without leaving their hometown. Have you ever heard that?
Mm, yeah, I have.
Yeah, they don't, of course they grow. And, people would probably want to argue with me, but you grow faster and you grow more
Mm,
in ways that you cannot by staying in your hometown your whole life. And that is when I saw a big change in me, when when I did that, and I did not look back. I did not go back. So, when my son left to go to the Air Force, I thought, oh, I don't want to see him go, but I knew that it was going to be really good for him, because there was going to be this enormous growth phase for him. And so I would suggest anybody go and do that. So yeah, I lived in my car for about 3 weeks. There was about a month, I think, that I did. And I will say, as scary as it was, I tapped into a part of me called resourceful. I
mm,
became so resourceful to get myself out of that. And so it built my confidence. So action every day builds confidence. I tell my kids, I tell others, that every time you make a promise to yourself and you don't keep it, you kill your confidence. So the more you kill your confidence, the harder it's going to be. So take action every day towards what you want. And that's what I did. And so in that situation, um, so I wouldn't, even though, yeah, it was kind of a dark, sad time, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right.
Maybe I would. Maybe I
But you
would.
learned.
Yeah, but you know what? It did make me resilient. And there was a long period of time, Joe, that I was ashamed of that story and I didn't tell
Mm,
anybody. It was like this little secret. And so now, even talking about it now is a little uncomfortable, but I've come a long way, obviously, because I can share the story. So I just hope that if anybody has ever been in that situation or is even in that situation, keep going, keep going. And
absolutely. And
not just keep going, but completely use it to elevate your life
exactly.
because it probably happened for a reason. You just got to find the reason and use it to flip it. Let's flip the script, completely flip the script. And when you are in a toxic environment, so many things are happening, but it's just like the quote that I told you that changed everything with for me, and that was the five you become the five people you spend the most time with. I wish I'd heard that back then, but it was
Hmm.
almost as if I didn't hear that back then, but I was forced out. It was like I was forced out, and I was forced to see it. There's nothing truer than that. That you will become who you surround yourself with. So, who do you have to be to surround yourself with the people that have the things and the life and the mindset that you want? And it's not
Mm.
just the things, but here's the thing about money. And so I get questioned about using the term rich, and not everybody likes that. But it's interesting because we tend to we hear for let's just talk about the Bible real quick, shall we? That's a really good example. But did you know that money is talked about in the Bible more than anything else? More than
Really?
love, more than what was it that I heard the other day? It's talked about more than love, more than heaven, and more than hell.
Hmm.
Money. Yeah. And so it we I grew up and I remember hearing a lot about how, you can't be a rich man and something about the camel through the eye of the needle,
Eye in the
right?
needle. Yep.
But why did we choose that one? There are other quotes, and there are other quotes in the Bible that literally want you. It was like they were inviting you and encouraging you to sit at the table with kings. So you cannot be an influencer. You cannot be a giver and help when you are that, when you are the poor, when you are the struggling. Let's just be honest, you can't. When you
Mm.
don't feel well. So that's why another reason why I started Rich Fit and Happy. And so I believe that you cannot do your life's work without being rich,
Hmm.
not fully your life's work. If you want to help a lot of people. For those that don't have the desire to help a lot of people, there's no judgment there. But if you have a desire to help other people, I was watching a movie. Oh man, this is a really good movie, and now I can't think of it. But I'm gonna if a person were to Google it, they could find it. It was a true story about a gal that was from Ireland, and she felt really drawn and had a desire to help. She even had dreams. She couldn't figure out why she had dreams about this, but she ended up helping thousands and thousands of children in Vietnam. So after the Vietnam War, there were children that were just running around, okay? Homeless children. They were mistreated. They were treated like they were just animals, stray animals. It was horrible. And she did everything she could. So she's in Ireland and she was drawn to this. So she had this draw to that country and she didn't know why until she was there. So if you have this, like when I watched that
Hmm.
movie, it compelled me to start taking more of the steps that I've wanted to take for years with helping the foster care program. So I have a program that I'm starting with my two daughters called fearlessambition.org, and we're still working on the details. But it's a program to help foster kids with the gap between leaving foster care and at 18, and they don't. They're just kind of like let go, and
Mm.
they don't have a lot of them don't have the family. The statistics are really sad in that in the first few years, a large percentage of them are either incarcerated, find themselves homeless,
Wow.
or pregnant, which makes life even more difficult. So fearlessambition.org, what we started was to help them with that gap, getting acquainted with and adulting and what that means, and not having the family support to help them makes them help. It really puts them in a state of struggle. So helping them with paying their rent and some other organizational type um, programs that we're putting together for them. So and helping them fund that. So I kind of got a little carried away with why I mentioned that. Um,
It's
can't
quite all
remember.
right. It's quite all right. Yeah. Well, you talk about kind of manifesting, and you have this other great story how you were just thinking about and writing it down about adopting, and then your doctor calls you,
Yes.
and then the
Yes.
very next day you get some other news after you adopt, and please share.
Okay. So my husband and I at the time had tried for about 5 years. And so I thought, well, I think I'm supposed to adopt. So was sitting in the chapel at my church, and a lot of Catholic churches have a chapel, just a little tiny mini church by the larger church. So um, I had written down. I felt very compelled to do so. I wrote down, "Show me the baby, and I'll say yes." And I remember thinking, I'm just tired of the trying. So that's another thing that we do. We don't surrender.
Hmm.
We think that we have to do everything, but yet we have a connection to source. You, if you want to call it God, Allah, Jesus, whatever you want to call it, we have a connection to that. So I suggest people all the time to find that connection to your source, what you find as your source or what you call. I tend to refer to him as God. So I wrote that down, and I literally within days. Oh, and by the way, I was introduced. I kind of introduced it to myself, didn't I? I took that paper and I had it in my purse, and I would take it out and I would say it. And I didn't even realize what I was doing, but I was creating repetition in my mind.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, I was taking actions as if. And so I did a silly thing. I bought a baby blanket. And so I was preparing room, like you and I had talked about when I had said in the very beginning of this interview, I for some reason had mentioned that whatever we want, we got to make room for it, right? So get ready for it to happen. And I did. So I got a call from a doctor just randomly. This was a doctor that I knew, of course, and he said, "Have you ever thought about adoption? I thought of you today." I said, "Why are you telling me this?" Because I literally I had written this, I was saying
Right.
it, and I'm hearing him say this to me. And I remember having the thought, like, who did I say this to? How did this get to him? How did he know? But I hadn't told anyone. I probably at the time was too embarrassed to tell anyone what I was doing. But he said, because I delivered a baby girl. And I said, and? He said, well, would you consider adopting her? And I said, well, I can't. I can't. I started thinking about all the many different reasons why I couldn't. And I had to stop myself because, hello, of course I can. Why am I
Mm.
saying this? And I said, well, I have to talk to my husband. I'd have to tell him I'm on the road. I'm headed home. I was traveling at the time for work. And he said, oh, I've already talked to him. So this was in the evening, and he had talked to him in the morning. And he said, I already talked to him. He told me to meet you all at the hospital with the attorney. And one of the things that I had written down was make it easy for me. I just
Right.
want to say yes. That's all I want to say. So I said, yes, I want her. So we got her 10 days. They do a very thorough investigation on you when you go to adopt. And so we went through the adoption investigation. We got her 10 days later, and found out I was pregnant 3 days after that. So
Amazing.
be prepared. So I've said, hey, when you manifest, be ready. You might get more than you bargained for. But that's the fun of it. That's one thing that I also teach in my program is rewiring your brain through repetition. So I have them do it's a three-pronged approach. I have them say it, write it, and visualize, and it will happen. So when you wire your brain and you take the actions, as simple as buying a baby blanket, as simple as making space, as simple as opening your bank account, whatever you need to do to let in what you're asking for will happen. It will happen. It works. But you have to mentally prepare for it. And don't blame me when it all happens at once.
Read it, write it, and visualize it.
and visualize. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I still I still write everything down. I don't know. Are you a writer, Crystal? Do you write with pen and paper?
Yes, yeah, and I suggest that. So there's definitely something with neurologically with your hand and your brain. And
Mm.
so I have written things down on my computer, but no, I definitely have a notebook and I write it down. I have tons of notebooks. I've laughed because I've thought if I were to die, my kids would go through this and say, "Oh my gosh, she actually dated all this and all these things happened." We thought she was psychic. But yeah, I do. I keep them and I have to remind myself to do it. And it goes, that's the daily, one of the daily habits that I talk about.
Mm. More of
Because you've
that
got to move,
repetition.
you've got to move towards what you want. And it's way too easy while adulting, as they call it. It's way too easy to forget what your main goals are. And to get away from, wait, I haven't even taken steps for a week towards that goal. So it really does amplify and speed up the process of manifesting. I know some people don't like the word manifesting, but that's I think everyone now knows what manifesting is, so I just simply use it to get my point across. But yeah.
Amazing how some words get stigmatized. So
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before we started recording. I'm not sure when I did, but when I started my business back in the '90s, and like your three pillars there, I was just working towards, getting clients, getting employees, etc. Wasn't paying attention to my health, and I was eating too much and drinking, and it didn't work out. Found myself at 340 pounds, way overweight, and the doctor said to me, "My daughter just was born. If you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see her graduate." So I took the next year and a half. Uh, Changed the way I did everything, and I lost about 130 pounds. And when I tell people this,
Wow.
yeah, when I tell people this, I can just see it. How did you do it? What's the secret? How'd you? And I just say discipline. I don't, People, that's it. It's just discipline, focus, discipline, and I got it done. So, I wonder how discipline. You alluded to it in the beginning with the nuns, but how does discipline play a role in your life now?
I have to make myself be disciplined every day. So I think
Hmm.
I have a little bit of an, I guess, ADD mind where it wants to wander and play, and I think we're all a little bit like that. But I've had to train my brain and wire my brain, and so these habits. I have a lot of habits that I have to make myself do, and I have apps. I have an app that helps me do a certain amount of writing every day. I have an app that in mind. So I have these goals. There is a really cute little app that the one I'm referring to is called Happier, the Happier app. And I think I pay for it. Pretty sure it's not much, a few dollars a month or something, but you set your little goals and it reminds you to do, two or three goals in different areas of your life. And one is to take 10,000 steps a day. And I try to do that because what I was noticing is the more I would get in, I have a part of me that kind of gets obsessed, okay, with something, and sometimes you got to have that when when you are
Hmm.
starting your business, and there's a lot of things to do. So I would do that, and like you, very much probably like you, Joe, where I would neglect movement. The body needs to move. It's meant to move, and so I have to remind myself to do that. So then I actually started taking or making a habit of walking while doing some of my work. So not
Hmm.
on a treadmill. I don't do that. I don't know how people do that. The treadmill and the working, I can't do that. I'll fall. But I will definitely walk outside because Florida, beautiful weather pretty much all the time except
Yeah.
in July. But I wear my little earbuds and I can listen to podcasts. I can if I'm going to be interviewing someone on my podcast, I like to listen to them just like you did a little bit of research on me and then
Yes.
take notes. I take little notes in my phone, but I make sure that I'm moving and try to hit 10,000. Just recently, my daughter argued with me that I did not. She's a Taurus. This is what they do. So I do not, there's not relevant research to suggest that we have to do 10,000 steps a day. So she wanted to know why I was doing that. And I said, well, I just heard. that 10,000 steps a day. She goes, it's wrong. So she Googled and she says that there's no reason why we should do more than 6,000 steps a day. Isn't that interesting? So she found
Hmm.
this research and I was like, so we don't get anything more out of it? Really? Okay. She goes, maybe a blister, but no. So I thought, well, maybe I'll adjust the 10,000, bring it down to 6,000, and then I can, maybe get something else done in that time. It is hard to hit 10,000, but what it forces you to do is ask yourself, what can I do? It's not all walking, by the way, the 10,000 steps. If you do a 15, 20-minute workout on a HIIT, I have another app that I use called Fit On. I love it. And I'll do a 15, 20-minute workout. And that is like half my
Sure.
activity right there. So it's using these little, I mean, we're living in the age where there's so many really cool apps out there to
Yeah.
help you reach your goals. There's no excuse. But the thing is that it's not just the minerals that help you fight depression, fight the brain gut uh, issues that we have with our food. It's we what was I going to? Oh, movement. If I think I read somewhere. I'm almost sure I did that most of our depression is lack of moving, lack of activity.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Joe, haven't you always noticed when you work out, you get your heart rate way up,
Oh
you feel
yeah.
fantastic? I mean,
Feel
there's
great.
nothing like those endorphins. There's nothing like it. So I would suggest anybody ask yourself, how much activity, movement, heart rate getting way up, out of breath, how much of that am I actually doing in a week's time, a day's time? And if the answer is you haven't for a long time, that right there will probably fix your depression issue.
Getting a good sweat in, there's the feeling afterwards. It's tough starting it and going into it. In the middle of it, you're looking forward to it to end, but as soon as it does, my goodness, it feels so great. It's interesting to me that you kind of um, the synonyms that you use for discipline is pretty much routine. You have to kind of force yourself to get into a routine. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
I don't naturally like routine,
Mm,
and that gets me into trouble because uh, freedom actually comes from discipline, not the other way
mm,
around. So
right.
when I wanted freedom and flexibility to do work when I want and do what I want, and you don't achieve that without discipline. So isn't that ironic, right? So you've got to actually, um, yes, you can have a flexible schedule, absolutely, because I can fly around to anywhere I want and get work done just like I'm doing. Because, like I said to Joe before he hit record, that I'm actually in Des Moines because my daughter that I adopted in 24 years ago just had a baby. And
Congratulations.
so I was able to get on a plane and come here and reschedule a little bit for a couple of different podcasts that I had on my calendar. But for the most part, I can come and go. And I've earned that through discipline
Mm,
to increase and elevate my income in order to do that and elevate my income to invest in properties so that my grandbabies can come visit me.
mm.
And and that I could leave a legacy and leave them a house if I want. So and that's another thing I teach in the program too is passive income. So the things that I learned in the Kiyosaki program years ago and that I've implemented, been able to implement, also requires discipline, also requires repetition. And the passive income, active income, and recurring income, those three incomes are what I um, teach, and getting all of your passive income paying, coming in and getting it to a level where it's paying all of your everyday bills, so that passive income, or I mean, so that your active income, all of that is just icing. And then separate accounts, I teach how to put it in separate accounts, not having debit cards or connections with those accounts. And I've been talking to a couple of gals. One I've got my eye on, where I would really love to partner up with her and have her be part of the program and teach um, investments and stocks, because Bitcoin is, there's so many different opinions about Bitcoin. I have done a little bit, and if I hadn't have, I wouldn't have learned about it. Yes,
Mm.
but I also, there was a big jump over the last, what was it, 6 years, 10 years? Um, I have a daughter that dabbles in day trading, and I just watch her and I'm going, because I've never really done any day trading.
Mm.
However, I've learned from her, and I'm like, wow, okay, okay. And she'll tell me I made $500 yesterday. I made this, and then a week will go by and she didn't make any. And I'm like, but she doesn't give up. See, so she doesn't make any, but then she keeps track of it all. And then at the end of 30 days, she can say, was it worth it? But it was worth it in that even if she doesn't have an increase, it was worth it in that look what she learned from this expert. She signed up for a class and this expert. And this is what I wish I had been told as a child. You attract more of what you focus on. So what you focus on grows. Focus on your money and it grows. That buys you more time with your family and doing what you love.
Wow, look at that smile once you say that. So genuine. So genuine, Crystal. Crystal
Yeah.
O'Connor, what motivates you?
I think my kids. I think kids in general. I have an elementary education degree,
You're right.
but I also had three kids in a very short time. So it didn't make sense for me to leave my kids to be with other kids only to give that salary to a daycare provider. It made zero
Mm.
sense to me. So I should have rethought that. And that's another thing I told my kids early on. Don't just do what you love. Think about what kind of income and lifestyle this particular career would get me. And if you still want to do it, then work now on saving and building passive income sources. And what better time in history are we in to make that happen in so many
Mm.
different ways, so many different ways. So I think that's what makes me happy, being around my kids, being there for my kids. And that's why I started the fearlessambition.org, and that makes me happy.
How do you measure success?
I think the connections that you've made and the impression that you've made on others to elevate their life. I think so. Yeah.
It's remarkable when your friends, colleagues do well and you have even a smallest part to play in that.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
That's
I agree.
wonderful.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful success. You're you're an author. You're a podcaster. I listened to a couple of the episodes. One, you were particularly angry at somebody that was doing some false marketing, and
You know what? That is so funny that you said that because I've had messages saying, "I loved your recent podcast. I want to be on your podcast." And I thought, "Oh, she must be angry. She must be passionate." I have listened to that, and you're right. There's something in my voice. Something had me kind of hot that day.
you were very diplomatic, though. You weren't. You weren't. You weren't. There was no animosity. You were just laying it out, but you could tell
Yeah,
you had a
because
passion for it.
I think that it can be hurtful when you're not being completely honest. I see a ton of that going on. I think people are coming forward and being more honest. I do feel
Mm.
like there's a change happening, but I think what you're referring to was one particular gal that I actually knew personally, and she the way she is presenting her language is that I had a baby and I became a millionaire. She became a million. I know for a fact because I know her personally. She became a millionaire and then had the baby, and so that's a little unfair. That might be a little unfair statement. So I say be completely 100% honest. Why not?
Mm.
Because what if that's more hurtful to somebody and instead of helpful
Right.
by not being honest?
And these days, you can really research and check on that kind of stuff, right? With all the tools that are available,
I think
you
so.
would think, yeah, you think that'd be pretty detectable. And of course, your book. Now, what made you, Moxie? Let's talk about Moxie, Girl's Guide to Becoming Fiercely Bold and Incredible, author, podcaster. My goodness, Crystal. Let's talk about your book.
Unleash Your Moxie. So I wrote that, and a person could find it by going to unleashyourmoxie.com. I've got it directed to the Amazon. But I wrote that because I just wanted to write a book. I'd always wanted to write a book. I thought, what's stopping me? And with all the blog posts that I had been writing over the years and being consistent with that, I was able to grab them, put them all together, and gave it to an editor. And that is when I realized editors are fabulous. Like,
Yeah, they are.
editors are so awesome. And they take a lot of the hard work out of it, in my opinion. Yes, it's still hard to write a book because you have to sit down and do it. But just like the art, this is not my book, of course. This is The War of Art
Sun
with
Tzu.
Stephen Pressfield. I was
Oh, Pressfield. Yeah.
my daughter loves this. She's an artist and she loves this guy. After she read that book, she was just like, oh my God, he understands my brain. But that's everybody's brain. Like, sitting down to actually do the work is harder than actually, putting it all together. So I when I learned, I found a really good editor through this friend of mine. Her husband was an editor. That's what he does for a living. And he wove my chapters together and my words together like tapestry. Oh my goodness. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write more books. This is fun.
Wow.
And so it takes a team. And um, I wrote the book thinking it was going to teach them about money and about business. And by the time I was done, I realized it was more about mindset. But that's what it is. Like, your biggest task, your biggest obstacle is your own mind and your own brain.
Hmm.
So I feel like I wrote a book about more mindset than anything else.
A lot of times we have to get out of our own way. Um, Thank you so much for your time today, Crystal. What attracted me to you is that I get a lot of requests that are just, I can make you this much money, this amount of time, and just do this. But you're so well rounded. It's there's health, there's be fit. It's just it's so important. I love your the way you attack it and the way you talk about it. That it's just not one thing. To be happy, you really have to have be well rounded and be kind of these
You
multicolors.
do, or you're building a business like a house of cards
Mm,
on sand. So get your foundation, which is your mindset, but also your health. I feel like that is the foundation. Um, and I started to see myself, I don't want to say crumble, but in a sense, I couldn't handle any more stress. And it was because I was ignoring my health. You probably felt that too, Joe, when you were
absolutely.
overweight. Yeah. You
I
just
was
felt,
much more productive.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the bad thing about it is you just get used to it. You get used to that weight and it's slowly there and you don't realize that your blood pressure's way up and your heartbeat and et cetera. And I was younger, so the body was doing a good job of fighting it off. But to this day, health is my priority. Crystal O'Connor, thank you so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you?
Richfitandhappy.com is my program page. You can go there. You can go to my Instagram is the Crystal O'Connor. You can follow me there, and then you can message me. And if you are I have a program that I'm not as focused on at this particular quarter, but the last quarter I will be, and that's Wealthy Wellness Academy, and that is for anyone in the health and wellness industry. I'm going to specifically help them get their word out and help them with marketing in that particular program to not just hit six figures, but double it the next year. And they could go there, or you can go to, gotta think about this opt-in, what we decided on, rapidcashinfusion.com.
I don't know about that one. Everything in my show notes has all that, but it's rapid show notes. And
Yeah.
then, of
And if
course,
my assistant Joanna hears me say that, she'll say, "Okay, Crystal, why did you say that?" Because I just did. Anyway, yeah, we're getting away from it, but right now, if they were to sign up, they can get a free program that I am putting in Rich Fit and Happy. So it's like pre-recorded. It's kind of like an older program that I used to sell, but I'm giving it away on a lead page at rapidcashinfusion.com, and they can kind of get the ball rolling and some of these foundational pieces set in place. And I feel like it's juicy enough to actually start getting traction on what they're missing right now in their business.
very good. Crystal, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
I was excited. I was excited when you accept this. Maybe next time when I'm in your general Florida area, we'll get a cup of coffee. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Bye bye, Joe. Thank you so
You,
much. I hope we meet in
you,
person someday.
that'll be great. You be well.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.